All right, you are listening to the Gamer Librarian Podcast, the best podcast that ever came back from a hiatus. That's just kind of the way it goes. We've been gone for a good bit. That is to say that, not to say that we're back in full swing weekly now, but this is just a little impromptu episode while we have the time. And where have I been? What have we been doing? Besides new personal job change, in a legal department sense. That's been an adjustment. So that's really a majority why the schedule's been really off lately with the hiatus. And other than that, proposed to my partner, which is so very cool, was, a little stressed, threw up the morning before, which is pretty insane. But she said yes, which is not what I thought she was going to say. That's pretty cool. All in all, we are here, and there's been some laptop issues, which has been a big majority. I don't know what will happen in the future. There's a loud buzzing eventually. That's really the crux of it. But the issue is, I don't know about the laptop, what we're going to do with that because steaming, which is a big thorn or piece of the gaming industry that is definitely going to be, I think, very good right now because it's just one of the first of its kind. But overall, down the line, later iterations of the Steam machine, I think that's where time will tell with how impactful it is to the industry. Because consoles are definitely a portion of getting people just into it in terms of a money standpoint who can afford a PC nowadays, but PCs are pretty around the same price, cheap, like the consoles now with all the price increases. That's been massive as well. For PC, you're paying for about 1,000 anyway, even like 10 years ago, somewhere north of there, if you want something relatively mid or high end, as far as I know. But for consoles, I think one of the bigger values that consoles really had was that they were coming from companies that were making these games alongside the consoles that weren't available on PC. At least that's what it seemed. A lot of games initially did come out on PC relatively at the same time. And I think that digital age is where that really started, is having those games come out together on all platforms. And then you really started talking about, well, other than Nintendo, who is mainly exclusive to their own consoles, what else is the difference between a PC, Xbox, and PlayStation? Not a whole lot. I was always in the ballpark of, if you just buy the game from one, you should maybe get a license for all of them. Just be like, all right, here's a PC and one console, key or whatever. I think that's decent for the future. I don't know what's going to happen. I remember PlayStation had something with having PC as well as PlayStation, like tags get leaked or something at some point on like their store page. Don't know what that's about or anything about that. Haven't been super on the ball with gaming news and all that stuff, besides like the big announcements and stuff. And the announcements have been insane, truly insane, because we are in an age of the big three companies doing more remakes than anything else. And yeah, there's like things like the God of War, um, the Laurel or whatever her name is game. I mean, that looks relatively decent. Like I have no qualms about it. It looks like a video game. I think it's definitely something that should have been announced at the same time where the last year's state of play thing should have uh, like happened with the other God of War announcements with the remake trilogy returning and all that. Like I think if it came out then, it would have been like, oh, cool, we got all this stuff to work on or like look forward to. But I think people really want to see what the next Kratos iteration and for the really hardcore lore fans, the wife game will probably at least bridge into that at some point. La Free, which is or La Fe. Doesn't look like a bad game. Looks like the same kind of God of War stuff. Marathon, man, it's very disappointing that Marathon was essentially a nail in the coffin for Bungie, and Bungie and their Destiny project didn't really pan out to be what it was. I'm not sure about what became of Destiny 2. Never played it all to myself. I remember Destiny 1 being a lot of fun, but the layoffs that are happening is pretty disappointing. And that's just, the way it goes, where sometimes these games just don't land, right? I mean, Marvel took on Fighting Souls. This is just a fighting game from a very notorious fighting game developer with money back from a long-standing like history of just comics, right, and fandom in general. So like, besides Arc System Works, which I think is already cool, just the mechanics and the gameplay alone, pretty excited for everything coming out with there. But comparatively, these extraction, large scale live service MMO type games, no, definitely harder to land if they're not already based on a main IP. And the thing is like Destiny was kind of like Halo adjacent in a lot of ways because there were, besides like first person shooter aspects, it was definitely multiplayer wise, as far as I'm reading the early days, being like this definitely feels like a relatively good step up from Halo, like Halo gameplay. And then, definitely fell out of it long for that during year one and then never played Destiny 2. So right. And then games like Wolverine, right? This is not to say Wolverine is not exciting to look at and stuff, but it's a Marvel game. Like it just comes with more Marvel history and all that. So it's kind of expected to have all that. I'm interested in original video games for the most part. Right? Am I excited for sequels and all that stuff that we're going to talk about? Sure. I mean, the Ill game that looks great for sure. There's some samurai game and like the only Musha, right? Phantom Blazer. Obviously, that game looks really fun. Hey man, we've seen Titanfall, right? So like, there's not really other big PlayStation announcements, at least here. Like Until Dawn, I don't necessarily care about that. And then like we've known everything else, right? Like there's no other larger announcement. It's everything that we've kind of already known. For Lawfrey was kind of a surprise, I suppose. So you did mention Nintendo, and what I really want to say about Nintendo is they should have an original game lined up right now for the Switch. Like that just needs to happen. If it's not Smash Brothers, it needs to be an original game, like an original Nintendo racing game right now. That's going to be good. Whatever new IP or whatever like old franchise that hasn't returned yet, like not Mario, certainly not Donkey Kong, right? Zelda remake, no, no. I'm like, I don't know what they're going to be doing with the third installment for Breath of the Wild because I don't know what they're really going to be doing with that. There's going to be a third one, but I don't want a remake of Ocarina of Time. I don't want remakes in general. I'm sure it's going to be like relatively interesting for what's going to be remade, or if it's going to be like a one-to-one kind of remaster. That's difficult to say. Maybe it'll have like some type of new big scale that's like to Breath of the Wild scale. I certainly would imagine. But after the Star Fox like remaster thing, I played the new one, but apparently it's the fourth one. Who's to say? And here is something else. Kingdom Hearts 4. I will say it doesn't look horrendous. However, the AI stuff that was in there coming out of their announcements, that was definitely something. But I always said I don't want the narrative to continue or anything. I don't think there's be Final Fantasy like ever in it. I think it's just gonna be they pay for Disney and they're only gonna use Disney and not like any other stuff. I am good on that. It's crazy how that's on 10 all pretty crazy on that. And that's it, right? Besides something else that's really cool is the Final Fantasy Residence announcement on the Nintendo One. I'm excited for that because it's over the game. It's on like mobile. I don't know if you can play it on PC and some like your solo away, but apparently it's like a single player game of Final Fantasy game where the guy just go you are against other side characters as you guys in like Final Fantasy main other story characters. So that is awesome. I'm holding down to that. Super excited, especially because I'm going through Final Fantasy games, just read Final Fantasy, which is incredible. It's rematches, just fast forward and all that stuff is super amazing. Can't believe that. Through Final Fantasy 6 now and Final Fantasy 14. What can I say other than we are going to try to redo alternate remake eventually. Don't know when that's going to happen. Just going to like bang up on the go. Don't know that happen. Never know. But cool. Very for that. And then there's like the class or whatever. But all those updates really going backward from Final Fantasy or anything. Kind of focusing on other games, at least for the most part, like the dive or DLC. Very excited. So pretty cool. I guess getting the cook characters is pretty easy. I'm very excited. Xenoblade, right. I have to those games mentioned basically, but there's really a whole lot else for you, which I said what I said about bananas and Popia seems to be something, and then another one of these game certainly don't care. So Summer Game Fest was pretty interesting in a lot of ways. There were things that were definitely exciting, were definitely surprising, but like I said previously, it's always games that we've already kind of seen be announced, and Xbox has had a lot of difficulties with not having their new game like Starfield. I think Senior was definitely new, but I've always heard like up and down things ever since that franchise came out. They did today's announcements. The Sony for Zone. During the dark ages, I cannot believe I got a DLG. I despise the gameplay for that game. It was very not as fun or cool as Eternal. Fable, I'm gonna be real. I think until I Fable, I'm not even gonna shit because like I've kind of seen like two sides of the same coin, which like I see things that like I wouldn't really like, but also like pursue character in the game or like if that different vibe, but it has other vibes that seem cool, like very original Fable, so I play that. There it is. It's Call of Duty, and I super despise combat or campaign for the fact that match selection exists. That's just more that not even that, and they're flip flopping between whatever way you live with having them on PlayStation or whatever. Like they need to pick and stick to it. Here's a word, the big one, right? I mean, I always this and ultimately, I think it's going to be a pretty good addition to the game series overall. Up gears with the whole and the art of it. The multiplayer obviously has some live services to it, I imagine. But am I super for it? I think that I'm a little reserved. I don't know if it's different. If it's like a 4 layer game, and as far as I remember, I think there's 4 and 5 only. It's like 2 players. As far as I remember, I don't necessarily know there's the difference. I think some of the mentions like was like only people, so you can do a whole lot. I have to actually do it. I've only played those campaigns like legitimately once, and it's just they're not as interesting or cool as the main trilogy, essentially. So the main franchise, but we're going back to E-Day. And I don't think they're going to rewrite anything. If anything, I think this is one of the perfect ways to make a lot more context, because there's a few things that are essentially kind of about the overall series story, and one of the things that kind of left in the dark side of here is 5 and whatever, which is probably looking down how it ends, is the relationship between the Gears and the Locusts, because if you know that like the Locust didn't just pop out of the ground. Unity knew about them for a decent, at least small sectors like Adam Phoenix and whatever. I think that's those main two, right? Between parents. They had a relationship, and both things didn't get done nowhere. So that's essentially the crux of that. And we don't hold contact because they're being Hero and I guess hierarchy of the locust and after, just because. So I think this is one of the perfect ways to add context to Gears overall over in a way that we know before. And one way that we can do that is I hope there's new enemies in certain ways. I haven't seen the trailers like it's long. I don't care to. But I would like to see new focus and enemies. Gears one takes place like 10 or 15 years after E-Day. That's not necessarily a lot where that wasn't long. These locals probably lost a lot of base to the monsters. So that's just what I have to say on that. And besides multiplayer, I'm seriously looking forward to more user lore and play user lore. And that's really good. I'm super excited for that. That's one of the best things I can say about Xbox for the time being. GTA 6 has an announcement, right? They need to do new gameplay. They held their DLC stuff, and I believe that it is where we're gonna have to run. I mean, I won't have to tell my mind, but for GTA, right, there is a whole lot that I want to see play wise before you commit to a pre-order. So that's really just it. But until then, that's all I have to say about the gaming industry. We might a little bit about other stuff later on, but essentially, peace.